Intergalactic, planetary, intergalactic. It's VGC, the video game podcast with me, Jordan Middler, and Chris Scullion. This week, it's your Game Awards hangover. But first, how's it going, folks? Chris, it's been so long. It's so long since I saw your wonderful face.
I'm a husky. A husky of a man.
A husky? A nice dog?
Or mush.
Just, yeah.
No,
mush is the correct word for how I feel at the moment. We record this at 9:30 a.m. on 13/12/24. We last spoke at 4:30 a.m. on 13/12/24, covering Jeff Keighley's Box of Endless Delights, the Game Awards. We'll get into it. I always love doing these because it's, big games, but the thing people don't see is me and you in the mines throwing up these stories, saying things that could never be said publicly for the sake of our careers, and just having fun. That bit's fun, at least, isn't it?
I do enjoy that. Those are the bits. This is why we do this, like the excitement of those kind of things. It's like massively stressful, but like when it's done, you can kind of look back at it and go, yeah, that was good. We wrote 25 stories in a couple of hours like that. That'll do nicely. But
people that are smart enough not to stay up on their Friday morning can wake up and just see a list of everything that happened, and we'll talk through that right now. But Chris, first of all, it's a special occasion. It's kind of the last proper week of work. We're starting to break up things before we head off, and obviously we were up late, so I thought I would go into my reserves and pull out the glass bottle of Red Bull. A nice, I believe it was bottled in sometime in the 1800s. It looks like that it has Austrian on the bottle. I initially thought it might be Thai, but it seems to be, unless it's just saying that it's because Red Bull is headquartered in Austria. There might be Polish on the bottle. Regardless,
they're all wildly different languages. So
yeah. Interestingly, on the bottle it says that it's best before the 26th of the 5th, 20, and then 2 Braille letters, which one can only assume is supposed to obfuscate the reality, but we've not got a crack. We've got a bottle. I'm going to tell you something, Chris. It smells like Red Bull.
I bet it tastes exactly like it as well.
Tastes exactly like Red Bull. Very nice. It's nicely chilled Red Bull, and I've said before I like a chilled Red Bull, but yeah. So today we are mixing and matching. We've got a classic Monster, a white Monster, and a Red Bull glass bottle. What about yourself?
I've gone in the opposite direction of you. You've gone for opulence.
Mm-hmm.
I have decided to give this a go because if it works well, then that's a money-saving scheme. I've gone for Asda's own brand. Chard. I believe it's pronounced Chard, but it's quite clearly like Churg. An energy drink.
CHRG.
Energy drink with guarana extract and contains taurine. So for all you taurine doubters out there, stay away. It's the least exciting can. It's literally black and grey, with a hint of green, and it's simply described as carbonated fruit flavour soft drink. So it's about as generic as you can get.
It's about as exciting as you would possibly want for such a drink.
We're talking 300 milligrams. No, 150. Sorry, 150 milligrams. My maths were awful.
300 mils would have been a double of a monster. You'd be pinging off the walls.
Enough to bring down an elk. But no, this is just normal. So we'll give this a go. If this ends up being okay, then I'll
get it around your lungs.
They were selling off a 4-pack for like 80 pence. So I was like, if this is the real deal.
Every can comes pre-bashed. Getting about it. I'm predicting something that tastes like a Monster or Red Bull derivative if it's just energy drink flavoured.
Yeah.
Yeah? The right kind of lines there.
It's got Red Bull tones to it. I see the fruit. I see the generic fruit flavour in it. It's not terrible. I could drink that.
Every can of different fruit. But I think I like the Aldi generic energy drink, the white one. That's pretty nice. So yeah, it's been an interesting evening of energy drink consumption last night. As in, I consumed all of them, but we
Yeah.
persevere. If you'd like to support VGC's endless quest to find the perfect energy drink, or in fact our coverage of the games industry, you should do so at patreon.com/video games chronicle. It's no secret it's a tough time out there, but keep the lights on at patreon.com/video games chronicle. Keep Chris Scullion in 80 pence energy drinks. Chris, shall we get into this behemoth list of stuff to talk about?
Let's do it.
Story number 1. Astrobot wins Game of the Year at the Game Awards. And a surprise to nobody, this was there was dancing on the streets of Jordan Middler when this happened. It was a moment that I was really hoping for. I kind of thought it was in the bag, to be honest, considering when that game came out and how much it appeals to hardened games journalists who make up the majority of the panel. But deserved, in your opinion, Chris?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, there was a lot of kind of false hype about Elden Ring's DLC, about how, does DLC count? Does DLC count? That was never going to win it because, like you say, like the people who are voting for it, I imagine some of them would have decided in their own head anyway that didn't count. So it was out of the running already. Black Myth Wukong wasn't critically acclaimed enough to, in my eyes, to be in the running. Because
Crap
it was
Pish Pukong, some people call it.
Famously, it's actually the physical edition has a reverse cover with that on the other side. So really, like Astrobot was a wee bit of a no-brainer, especially with Indiana Jones rolling in too late to be counted for the year. And Balatro is one of those ones where like is a fantastic game by all accounts. I refuse to touch it. But I think in the mindset, some people in their minds would still refuse to accept that as a Game of the Year contender just because of how it looks, fairly or unfairly.
I think as the night progressed, it emerged quite quickly that the battle was between Metaphor and Astrobot. So the whole list is Game of the Year, Astrobot, Best Game Direction, Astrobot, Best Narrative, Metaphor, Best Art Direction, Metaphor, Best Score in Music, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Its only award of the night. Best Audio Design, Senua Saga Hellblade 2, Best Performance, Melina Jurgens, Innovation and Accessibility, Prince of Persia, Games for Impact, Neva, Best Ongoing Game, Helldivers 2, Best Community Support, Baldur's Gate 3, Best Independent Game, Best Debut Indie, Best Mobile Game, That's All Balatro, Best VR Game, Batman Arkham Shadow, Best Action Game, Black Myth Wukong, Best Action Adventure Game, which for some reason are two different categories, That's Astrobot, RPG goes to Metaphor, Fighting Games Tekken, Family Games Astro, Sim is Frostpunk, Best Sports / Racing, Chris Scullion and Jordan Middler's EA Sports FC 25. Thank you for all your support. Multiplayer game went to Helldivers, Adaptation went to Fallout, Most Anticipated Game went to Grand Theft Auto 6, and Content Creator of the Year went to Queso. I know you're really happy about that. You're pulling for Queso.
I was like, I almost broke my neck standing on my chair. I forgot I had wheels.
I would say it was worth it.
We'll get that one year.
Yeah,
I like to think we're the best content creator.
Can we share it though, or is this going to be like a Mozart and Salieri type thing?
It has to. We have to use Google Maps to find the central. I can't even speak today. The central point between Edinburgh and Paisley, and make a plinth right in the middle and set the award on that protected.
Pretty sure it's a little service station. It's got a Burger King in it. It might be one of these ones that's got the bridge that goes across and has like a Burger King one side and a Greg's on the other. So you've got a Circus of Value.
We'll put it right in the middle of the bridge just to get in the way of everyone who's trying to walk past it.
The thing people talk about at the end of all these things is, was there enough time for the awards? And I think it's pretty safe to say that there wasn't enough time, but that was clearly by design because of how much game they had to show. I thought it was a bit strange that like Best Indie Game, which is a pretty big category, at least it's talked up as a pretty big category, got one of the little inset, and here the Best Indie Game is blah, and what did you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret for the longest time the awards element of the Game Awards takes a very, 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 very distant backseat to the actual announcements. So yeah, I personally, this is really bad to say, I don't care about the awards bit either. I think it's all quite arbitrary. Certain juries of people who are voting for it. If it goes to the public, it becomes a popularity contest. If it's picked by a jury, then it's only really down to what they say. I'm glad for the companies that win them, because it helps them to. I'm sure it helps them with future projects and stuff, that they've got something they can physically point at and say, "Look, this is how great we are." So for them, it's great, but I think for everybody else, it's rather selfishly, I would say, it gets in the way of what everyone is actually there to see. Nobody's there to see what wins best VR game.
Yeah, it's pretty much it's pretty much just like the game of the year show. Like, people seem to get pretty invested in that. But there's other game award shows that take a slightly different tact. Like, DICE is a lot more like dev focused. It doesn't have all the trailers and stuff. It's just very like, let's sit down and appreciate games. But yeah, there is a large number of people who will, for the first time, be sitting down and hearing, "Oh, this metaphor? Well, what is this?" Because that game was marketed terribly and has a terrible title that is impossible to Google. Oh, what's this? Maybe I'll check this out. Balatro, clear example of that. Hopefully Astrobot's the same, because like that game did like, I'm pretty sure Chris String said that it did exactly how we would expect it to do. So hopefully that gets a little boost, and that's just a game that keeps on trucking. Friend of the show, Nico Doucette from Team Asobi, thanked Nintendo in his speech without saying the word Nintendo, which apparently is due to him obviously being an employee of Sony, not only being an employee of Sony, being an employee of Sony in Japan, where that kind of thing is very different. But
I love how he made a big deal about that. I was going, a very big company. We are in Tokyo, they're in Kyoto. I think you know who I'm talking about. And I didn't even say them. Ha ha ha. Well, 20 seconds ago, he's like, we were all inspired by Super Mario Brothers. Again, you've already shot at me.
Then he walked off stage and went, "Wahoo!" But yeah, Astrobot's a fantastic game. I'm so happy that it won. I think it's in a year where Sony probably kicked off this year thinking, okay, let's look at the deck here. We've got this little platformer that we'll let we like Team Asobi. They'll do a little platformer for the 30th anniversary. We've got this big shooter. This is where the money's going to be made. This big live service shooter. That game lasts 10 days, and then Astro becomes this phenomenon.
I've got no complaints at that one. I mean, personally, I think South Park Snow Day was robbed, but
yeah.
I mean, but if that can't win it, then I'm happy for Astrobot to take it.
Yeah. Speaking of Sony, let's get into some of these game announcements. The biggest one, which closed the show, Naughty Dog's next game, Intergalactic The Heretic Prophet, has been announced. The game features a sci-fi setting, and the trailer is available on YouTube. Go and check it out. I thought it was a really, really strong trailer. I thought the vibes were fantastic. The game's soundtrack has been composed by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, and the trailer features Pet Shop Boys. It's clear Sony's going to spend a hell of a lot of money on the music in this game. Here's a little bit from a Naughty Dog blog. Intergalactic stars our newest protagonist, Jordan A. Munn. Come on, big year for Jordan. Let's do this. A dangerous bounty hunter who ends up stranded on Semperia, a distant planet whose communication with the outside universe went dark hundreds of years ago.
It's like Paisley as well. It's quite exactly odd how close it is.
Neil based this entirely on, see if there's some kind of like space energy drink that this Jordan drinks a lot of. Come on now. She loves the space Celtic. In fact, anyone
she levels up by blagging stuff.
Opening packs of space Pokemon cards. In fact, anyone who's flown into it hoping to unravel its mystery, mysterious past was never heard from again. Jordan will have to use all her skills and wits if she hopes to be the first person in over 600 years to leave its orbit. In July, Druckmann said this is one of multiple single-player projects. No prizes for figuring out what the other one is, kids. But yeah, I thought this was an absolutely banging trailer. Obviously, we knew bits and pieces of this, but when you see it laid out, man, good stuff.
Yeah, it was. I mean, we get insider stuff, so we knew Naughty Dog had something coming, and we knew it sounded like it was going to be space themed. But when you see it, it's like I'm not the world's biggest fan of the Last of Us series. I appreciate them as artistic achievements and everything they do, but I struggle to get into them for whatever reason. It just doesn't click with me. But I'm all over this one. The soundtrack is phenomenal. The art design exactly what I want. The use of like kind of old style, like the Porsche spaceship and the kind of old school Sony electronics and the thing. I'm like, I'm all over this. The subtitle, The Heretic Prophet, is awful, but I'm happy to just call it Intergalactic. But I'm well up for it.
I think that they showed like a part where she lands on the planet, picks out this like kind of big laser sword type thing, and starts attacking an enemy that was evocative of what the gameplay is like. I think this will probably be like a third person action game. It'll be interesting to see Naughty Dog approach that. They said somewhere in the blog that they're fortunate, like returning to their roots. Like they said that it evokes Crash Bandicoot in some way, which really broke my heart. But apart from that, I think it'll
she's going to run up. She's going to run up right. See, what just as it cut off, they missed a bit where she runs up with that sword and spins around, and goes "Oolabaga!" and that's a spin attack.
The whole game is running towards the screen. That I think it's going to be a pretty big departure from The Last of Us, because like you go from Uncharted to The Last of Us as very different games, but you can see the DNA. Like they're both games where you shoot guns, whereas this feels like it's going to be something pretty substantially different.
It's going to have to be wildly different, because I think that's one of the reasons that I didn't get into The Last of Us, is I never really liked the combat in it. I think it was deliberately made quite clunky for the whole survival side of things. That can't be like this for Intergalactic. If it's full on like diving into people, it's going to be completely different. It's going to have.
She's like a pro bounty hunter, so she's got to know what she's doing, and I'm really keen to see how they handle that.
She's got to be able to throw a brick with some kind of accuracy.
Exactly. I thought this really couldn't have debuted any better. There was a little Camille Nanjiani. It was spotted in the trailer, as well as was I recommend people go and watch that trailer again, because there's a cameo from someone in there that will become important in the future. But I think that this was kind of, I think Sony really needed to get this out there in the same way that they needed Yote a couple of months ago, just to be like, okay, what we doing here? What's the next kind of chapter of PS5? Because do you assume that this is a 2026 game and The Last of Us Part 3 is a 2028 game, probably? Like, right? Because Last of Us, last year of the PS3, Last of Us Part 2, last year of the PS4. Got to assume they're going to follow a similar cadence for 3, and that's probably 2028, 29 when we get the PS6.
At least, I mean, I'd be stunned if this came out next year. It seems like it's going to be 2026 for Intergalactic, at least. It might even get pushed further back than that. You can never tell with these things when all you get is a cinematic, even if it is in game. That leaves so much interpretation to how far along they are with it. So you never know, but it's certainly not coming out anytime soon, I don't think.
They said they've been working on it since 2020, as soon as they wrapped on The Last of Us. So you got to assume that, like, Neil was pretty open about not wanting to do 3, at least not straight away. So he throws himself into this, and then Sony goes, right, come on now. We've got the biggest TV show in the world. You're going to have to make a 3 here, son. I think that's how it'll go. And considering how like silly 2025 is getting, no need to put it out there. Sony's big game next year's Yote anyway, so we're not in this. We're not in a cadence where Sony puts out multiple of these big things every single year. But yeah, I thought
it'd be nice though, wouldn't it?
I mean,
it'd be nice to have more than one game a year to look forward to.
I mean, I think we've got plenty of games to look forward to next year. I think that
but yeah, we're not going to be. We're not going to. There's no drought next year, certainly.
Thanks to games like co-op standalone Elden Ring game, Elden Ring Night Rain, which was announced during the show. This game is was quite a surprise that when it started coming across the wires. You can check the trailer out on VGC. But the game is a kind of co-op. It's described by people who have played it as like a helldivery, monster huntery thing. You're dropping in groups of up to 3 Elden Ring characters, Elden Ringers as they call them, to take down big bosses and to move through the open world. And the idea is that you have to survive like 3 days and 3 nights, and obviously not die, which is difficult because From Software like to make their games hard as absolute piss. I thought it was a cool trailer. I think I thought it was always pretty obvious that they were going to reuse that open world that they made for the first Elden Ring because it's so huge. Like it would be really fruitless just to make it for one and then discard it. But I know it's not your kind of thing, but from pumping out Elden Ring, then the DLC, and then this straight after, that's pretty mad, is it not?
Oh, it's impressive. You're right. It's the least. If I could draw you up a game I'd give less of a shit about, it would need to have like kind of real time tactics added to it as well, and then that'd be me totally out. But I appreciate how important it is to a lot of people and how it is very much the jam of multiple people out there. So fair play to them for knocking this out. And for the people who are into it, I can see how it's going to be a massive deal. So I'm not like, but we'll probably get to this later, but there's been a lot of shit online directed at me and directed at the VGC account for reporting that story, saying it'd be 2 holy shit moments. And the conclusion was basically that because one of them wasn't GTA and the other one wasn't Half-Life 3, therefore that was a lie. And it's like you can't be narrow-minded enough to think that because it's something you're not interested in, you can't acknowledge it as a big deal. I've got no interest in the Elden Ring Night Rain, but you cannot deny that's a fucking massive announcement.
I would argue there was like 5 holy shit moments.
At least.
Yeah.
So you
were wrong, so there wasn't 2.
Well, okay, well, sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Never speak again. The multiplayer experiences in From games have always been absolutely hoaching and have required like fans to like mod it to make it usable. So I'll be interested to see like if they actually fix it for this.
I wonder who else is. I wonder if it's just them as well, or if they've teamed up with someone. I've not read too much into it.
You've got to. I don't think this can't be Miyazaki doing this. He'll be doing something. Bloodborne 2. He'll be doing something else.
This is another team working on this. I'm totally guessing. That don't run the news things, but it doesn't feel to me like a priority project.
I bet. See if this does well and it has live service elements. I bet you somebody's like, "Oh, Kadakawa, come on in," and this is just a freebie to pick up and slap the PlayStation logo on. I think Miyazaki preoccupied with other things. It's not even on this list, but we'll do it very quickly. First trailer for The Witcher 4. I thought it looked really nice. Obviously pre-rendered. It literally said in the trailer that it was rendered using an unannounced RTX GPU, which was pretty funny. You play Ciri, who was obviously in The Witcher 3, but she'll seemingly be the protagonist. And at the end of the trailer, you heard Big Geralt's voice. I know there was that story going about that Doug gets collar felt for saying that he was in it, but the Witcher 4, that's trucking along. I think CD Projekt, obviously Cyberpunk was absolutely shocking, but they have done pretty much all you can do to win the hearts and minds back, and I feel like for people that aren't as tuned into all of this, The Witcher and Cyberpunk have absolutely no relation to one another. So as a reset, I think this game's going to be absolutely mega when it comes out.
Oh, definitely. Cyberpunk was the kick up the backside they needed to let them know that they weren't infallible. They're not going to make the same mistake twice, you would hope. So you would imagine that when The Witcher 4 comes out, it's very much a Witcher 3 situation, and everyone that unanimously loves it right off the bat. So,
how do you think it'll affect how they show it? Because do you remember, I hated this, when they were showing off Cyberpunk for years, and they would show it to press, but they would never release the stuff. They would just get the press going like, "Oh man, it's the craziest thing you've ever seen," and use them as marketeers. I think they will be much more open about it this time and be massive yellow letters being like, "This is not final. This is pre-rendered," like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, again, it's similar to Intergalactic there. it looks the part. You can get a sense of the art style, and the art style is very much The Witcher. But other than that, it's kind of hard to tell exactly what you're going to be getting here, especially because they only just announced recently that they just started proper production on it. So this is a couple of years away at least.
Yeah, imagine this goes dark for a couple of years and then maybe like
this is
Game
late
Awards
2026, early 2027 at the very earliest, I would say. So yeah, this is a while away, but the tone's right. So
yeah, I trust them. They seem to have their heads screwed on. A member of CD Projekt Red who will remain nameless. We had a lovely chat at SGF. Didn't talk once about games. Talked about the holy goalie Artur Boric because he was a legend of his club team and ours. So
was that Stephen Project who was talking to you?
It was. It was Claire, Daniel Project, CD Projekt. People think it's a studio. It's actually just one lassie.
But she married Stephen Red, which is why she became Claire Project Red.
Yeah, exactly.
Double-barreled surnames.
Another generation of people deciding how Polish they're going to spell it with their K's and their accenty goos over the O's, but the thing remains that the trailer is the Witcher doing the thing that is correct morally, and all the peasants going, "You bloody bastard! I can't believe you've killed that big monster that was going to kill us all." That was Andy Robinson.
It was, that was him. I heard him shouting it from the crowd.
Speaking of Andy Robinson, Hideki Kamiya's new studio Clovers is working on an Okami sequel with Capcom. This is pretty damn ridiculous, I think, in terms of WTF moments. This was the biggest. Hideki Kamiya sat completely still in the audience as it was revealed that Okami sequel is kicking off. This is probably not one we'll hear about for like 5 years at this point, but a lovely story, Chris Scullion.
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, like, again, Andy was tweeting last night that there'll be an interview about this pretty soon. He met up with Kamiya recently, and I've got no doubt a lot of to be announced, like things were said at the time. So like Andy made it quite clear on social media last night that he's been sitting on this for a wee while and I've been struggling not to tell anyone, although we knew. But he's it's a massive deal. I love the. You could tell Kamiya wasn't happy at Platinum for whatever reason when the new management came in, that something must have just not gone well with him about how the direction the studio was going in. He left like days after we interviewed him. We visited him, and we obviously visited him. Visited
Platinum, he was packing up his desk.
And as soon as we left, he was like, "I'm done with this. I'm done with these guys. I'm done with this." He left Platinum last year and basically said stuff this. And then for whatever reason, he couldn't do anything for a year. I don't know if there's some sort of non-compete clause he had in his contract or something. So it's now pretty much just over a year later, and he's turned up and says, "Here we are. I'm back. I'm working alongside Capcom on an Okami game," which is amazing in itself. The studio is called Clovers, which is an enormous piss take, because Clover Studio was the studio that was formed by Capcom developers at the time to get more creative freedom. And although Clover only lasted a few years, they managed to knock out Beautiful Joe and remind me here, Okami, obviously, and one other, which my brain has just gone completely flat. But so Clover knocked out those 3 games in like quick succession and then folded, and a lot of people from Clover then formed Platinum Games, including Kamiya. So Kamiya's obviously God's hand. So Kamiya's obviously going, stuff this, I'm going back to Clover, but we'll now call it Clovers just to make it slightly different enough. So yeah, it's fantastic for people who've been in this game long enough to remember Okami coming out and Okami being a massive deal. This is huge. This is one of the holy shit moments for me, I think.
One for the heads, yeah. One Lucy James, friend of the show, was crying. Okami is one of her favourite games ever. Yeah, lovely to see that big Doug kicking a ball. While we're in Japan, random one, Capcom reveals Onimusha Way of the Sword. They're doing a new Onimusha game, which is pretty batshit. I said this like 6 months ago. Capcom are in a position now where they don't make bad games, so they're like, let's just get every single franchise we have and try and bring them back. Onimusha Way of the Sword, It's June 2026. Not much is known about it beyond the fact that it's coming to PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. Chris, I will put money on that now that game is going to be a banger.
Oh, definitely. I remember they did a survey a wee while back where they just asked people, which of these series do you want back? And like Onimusha was in it and like a bunch of other stuff. And it's one of those ones you're like, would they? Or would they not? Would they not bother? Is that just like,
I thought they would do Dino Crisis before they did the Onimusha, to be honest.
I mean, I'm up for it. It's not a series that I've been like massively obsessed with back in the day. I played them and then kind of moved on, but it's got a big fan base. I say big. It's got a passionate fan base. Let's say.
Shout out Chris Wall, absolutely pissing his pants this morning.
Definitely. So the people who love it really love it, and they'll be massively up for that. It was a good show for that sort of stuff, like for picking off all the kind of cult followings and saying, here's you the Okami team, here you go, here's a new Okami for you, are you part of the Onimusha squad, here's a new Onimusha for you, is Shadow of the Colossus your favourite game, here you go, that's you sorted. Just picking off all the kind of small groups of people with their kind of niche loves and just making sure everyone's happy. It was a great show for that.
We'll have to go very briefly past it, but yes, Famitsu Ueda revealed Project Robot, which is his next game. Cool little trailer, basically no other information, but he's any developer involved with him is one of those you stand up and pay attention. I only think one of his games is an actually brilliant game. I don't know why I'm doing the Trump hands and podcasts recently when I've been saying things that I think will get me flack. I start doing the Trump hands. I love Shadow of the Colossus. But I always thought that I thought The Last Guardian wasn't amazing, and I didn't think Eco was amazing. But when you can make Shadow of the fucking Colossus, man, I'll play whatever you want.
Especially because this looks like Shadow of the Colossus, but with mechs. That's again, that's years away. That's Keeley's went to him and said, mate, this is the 10th anniversary. Can you just pull something out your hoop just to make this look good? And he just went, all right, we'll fire out like a shortcut scene of the game that's like 5 years away. He's got previous with Last Guardian. Like, this isn't like my daughter will have kids by the time this comes out. And she's 60 now. So
this podcast will be on its 500th episode.
Yeah. So we'll see.
And your kid will be hosting it. I'll be
lying
head
on
in
the couch.
A jar like Futurama.
I'll be off camera lying on a couch, getting the sleep I finally need for today. Yeah,
like late in life Orson Welles. The French. That's a niche reference. If anyone gets that,
I got that.
I know you would. You always get my ones for the heads. Let's do one more before we go to the break, because RGG Ryoga Gotoku really whipped it out. We've been told a couple of days ago that there was potentially a new Yakuza coming, and I think there was a new Yakuza shown, Project Century, a game that asked, what if Rain looked absolutely amazing? Watch the trailer. It's set in 1915 Japan. The vibe is immaculate. I think that game will eventually become a Yakuza. But when we were watching that trailer, Chris, we were going, oh, look at this. What is this thing?
I'm a sucker for Rain in games. That's one of my favourite things. Like Breath of the Wild did it well. But yeah, this looked fantastic. This is a Yakuza game. I don't care about any Tom, Dick, or Harry tells me this is. It's going to be it'll be a spin-off probably, or some sort of, because it's like far too early to be a prequel. This isn't a Yakuza Zero situation, but
you can't turn out to be 115 years old.
But this might be their equivalent of Mafia, the old country, where it's like, let's go back to like the early days and see what it's like. It needed a change. The Yakuza series needed a change of scenery, and it's been doing that in recent years, but going in a wacky direction. With the kind of the newer Like a Dragon stuff, especially with the pirate one coming out. This feels like an attempt to dial it back and say, okay, well, if you want something different, but it's still like kind of its foundation is quite serious, and here's another period of Japan that we kind of want to do. And I'm excited because we've not seen, as someone who has never lived in Japan.
In the 1915s.
Exactly. We've never, like, when we know what 1915s Britain looked like, because we see lots of archive footage of that. I've not got much experience in 1915s Japan, so this will be an interesting way to experience it, because there'll be a strong attention to detail based on the other Yakuza games, assuming that's what this is. But yeah,
it was a lot of jelly deals and steak and kidney pie over in 1915s Japan.
Famously.
Sack all this, Chris Scullion. Virtua Fighter.
I called this like 3 seconds before it was announced, because there's a bit where like a guy gets punched through a wall, and the way was that the move used to punch him through the wall looked oddly Virtua Fighter-esque, and I was like, what if this is a Virtua Fighter? just as it announced it.
Because the RGG logo came up and we were like, okay, so this is Yakuza, and got ready to like write it up, and then you're like, hold your horses. Get those horses held.
I think it's nice. It's a nice full circle moment, because Shenmue was originally called Virtua Fighter RPG. Shenmue, which would eventually evolve into the Yakuza series, would be the kind of spiritual successor to that, and now it's all come full circle. Now the studio that does that series has now moved on to Virtua Fighter again. So what began as Virtua Fighter always ends as Virtua Fighter, and so was the story of life.
I can't wait to see this. I can't wait to be playing this Virtua Fighter game in Yakuza 15 in like 10 years' time.
Well, the thing is as well, I should probably give Tom a nudge about this. They did a Virtua Fighter Direct at like 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah,
and I was like, stuff it. I'm massively excited for a new Virtua Fighter. At the same time, I'm also massively excited about getting 2 hours of sleep, so I would rather do that. So probably once we finish recording this, I'm going to go and watch it and see what it is, to see if they show anything. I would imagine they might not, but who knows?
Just going to show people knocking lumps at each other. We're going to knock lumps at each other during this break. We'll be back in a minute. And we are back. Remember, all of this coverage of the Game Awards was thanks to our support on patreon.com/videogameschronicle. You get extra podcast videos and more, and a vlog from one Andy Robinson, who has been drinking his way through LA the past 24 hours, so check that out. Big sandwiches included. This week we released CVG, Chatting Vintage Games, all about the PS1, and I think it was that banger ep, Chris Scullion.
Yeah, I was really happy with that one. It was a long one, and it took a while to put the video version together, but people seemed quite happy with it, so I'm happy.
I was there. I edited the audio version, and I still rewatched it for the video version because it feels like a different experience. So
I'm glad, because I also I make a big deal of like doing the video properly. I think a lot of times when people do retrospectives and things, they just slap any old shite on there and like, oh, that counts. But we were speaking about pretty specific moments in games, and I was like, okay, I need to find those moments. And we mentioned Lara Croft exploding in Tomb Raider 2. I was like, I need to get that. And I mentioned the weird kind of audio glitch in FIFA 96. I'm like, it'd be nice to kind of get that. So all these kind of when you mentioned the weird intros in WCW Nitro, I was like, I need to go and get myself some of those captured. So
we just posted a 3.5 hour video of Kevin Nash going, pick me if you want, I don't care.
But yeah, I thought it's important to have a multimedia experience when viewing the video version of this, so you don't have to just sit and look at us for an hour and 40 minutes. So yeah, I'm happy with it, and people seem to be happy with it. So I'd say worth the price of admission alone.
Chris, I'm going to introduce a new segment. It's called Jordan Reads Headlines from the Game Awards, and you react to them with an and we just move through them. Okay,
sounds good.
A new third-person Turok game, Turok Origins, is in development.
The high bit is for Turok. The bit is for third person, because that remains to be seen how that's first person all day long. Turok.
I think people would have got that, to be honest. I think they would have been able to discern that. Gearbox has shown off the first Borderlands 4 gameplay trailer. Fair. How does this one do for you? Sifu Studios Slow Clap announces a rematch of 5 versus 5 online football game.
Okay. It sounds like I'm going to eat it. I was showing this before the Game Awards, so we were kind of giving a brief on kind of how it works. It looks really cool. It's weird to say it's like Rocket League without cars, because that's just football, which is what it very much is. But it looks like oddly it reminds me of the football mode in the new Wii Sports they brought out, or the Switch Sports. But with that, it was like punting a giant beach ball about, where this is just normal football. But it's got that kind of feeling where you're a single player, third person, and the ball's just rattling off the walls, and you're trying to catch it on the volley. It looks like it uses kind of third person. It's third person viewpoint, but it uses like action game controls. So there's a cursor in the middle of the screen. When you watch the video back, the trailer back, there's a tiny wee crosshair in the middle. So you're actually you're aiming at where in the goals you want to shoot. So instead of just press the shoot button, you're actually firing your shot based on where you're pointing at the goal, which I think will be really interesting. So you can you're passing and everything. You'll be able to specifically point at a part of the wall and fire the ball towards that to set up a rebound and stuff like that. So it looks like it's going to be pretty fantastic. And there's some bullshit storyline about saving the planet as well. So all the stadiums that are going to be in the game are going to be in these kind of weird eco-friendly ones in like a forest and all this kind of stuff. It looks really weird, but I'm up for it.
Interesting. Steel Paws is a new mobile game from Yu Suzuki.
I barely saw that. This is what people. So my reaction would be, or people don't realize that, or maybe they do. Maybe people are actually quite thoughtful. But when we cover these things in real time, we don't see a lot of it. Like we'll see the first few seconds of a trailer and go, "Oh, that's whatever," and whichever of us decides to write that story up, we'll glance at it every now and then as we're writing, just to try and get a release date and then hope for a press release. So it's not until the next day we get to actually sit down and watch it like other people did. So we missed so much stuff. So I saw the title of this, saw that Suzuki was involved, but I couldn't tell you anything about it. I need to go back and watch it.
Especially like for this show specifically, I think out of if he showed 30 things, we knew about 28 of them. So it was a case of just like trailer starts, get it up. But a strange one. Sonic Racing Cross Worlds has been announced, and the time it took me to say that is also the time that they actually showed it. The last Sonic Racing game was 5 years ago, Chris. Why have they only got the back of Shadow's head to show for this?
I mean, technically the last Sonic Racing game was a couple of years ago on Apple Arcade, but nobody played it. The last one that mattered was 5 years ago. When we knew this was coming, I was like, I hope it's not another Team Sonic Racing, which I was fine with. It's basically Sumo Digital's done the last 3 proper Sonic Racing games. They did Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing. Then they did Sonic and All-Stars. They took Sega out. Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed, which had Wreck-It Ralph and Danica Patrick in it, the Dream Team. But then for the last one, they did Team Sonic Racing, but they took all the Sega characters out, and it was just Sonic characters. And you're like, okay. So this, the whole, it looks like they're going down the multiverse side of things with this one, based purely on the title, because that trailer showed nothing other than the fact that there's a motor in it and shadows in it. Not brilliant. So I wonder if that's, I doubt that's going to mean Sega crossovers again. I think it's more going to mean different eras of Sonic and different types of Sonic, because the mobile games do that quite a bit. The Sonic mobile games will occasionally do events where you can unlock movie Sonic in the game, or that stupid owl thing from the Sonic film. So I'd imagine it'll be that, where you're racing characters from various Sonic universes, Sonic Prime and all that kind of shit.
You're telling me I can't race as Yuji Naka?
I'm afraid not. You also can't race as the greatest character in any cartoon game ever, Ages, which was the final unlockable character in Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed, which was a big Dreamcast VMU that transforms into a Afterburner plane, which then transforms into an Outrun arcade machine, depending on whether you're in the land or in the air. That won't be in it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, the last thing I would say was they showed the Outer Worlds 2 trailer, which I thought seemed pretty cool. Some cool gameplay. You saw a Mafia thing the other day. That seems like it's coming together.
Yeah, the Mafia looks the old country looks fantastic.
Oh,
Yeah, I saw a wee bit of it earlier, and it was like earlier in the week. They showed us a trailer in advance and then spoke to us a bit more about what. So actually, there's been an interview going up either today or tomorrow, probably tomorrow. I'm sure. Those words aren't going anywhere.
It'll go up unless you forget about it.
Oh, that's good. Because that's what they say in it.
Yes.
But it looks great. I get the vibe. They never said this, but this is the vibe I'm getting, that this for the Mafia series. I didn't mean to say the Mafia series.
This to the Mafia
series is their Red Dead Redemption. It feels like the Red Dead of the Mafia series because it's set in Sicily in the 1900s, and literally 1900s, as in like 1905 or something. And it's like, because it's set in a rural area with not a lot of cars, there's a lot of horse riding and stuff in it, and there's a lot of exploring countryside and stuff. And they basically said to us that they shifted to Unreal Engine 5 for this. One of the reasons was to be able to better show off the landscapes, because this is one of these where the scenery is going to look literally unreal. This is their Red Dead, I think.
Green, white, and Red Dead. That's the Italian flag.
Good. But at the same time, it's good that they're sticking with a linear narrative again. So it might not be entirely Red Dead. I think that's one of the things a lot of people were angry about Mafia 3 for. It's not just the fact that it wasn't like the stereotypical Godfather style Mafia. That was more like, it was a totally different setting, but also the fact that instead of it being like a kind of tight linear narrative, they attempted to go more open world with it, and they split it into 10 regions, and you had to just do the same shit over and over again to claim all the regions, and that was a bit shit. So it sounds like they've kind of gone back to the roots with this one, it looks amazing.
Sorry, I'd be remiss not to include this. New Pac-Man game, Shadow Labyrinth, is a sci-fi 2D action platformer. What is this?
What, you mean Pac-Man Act Zero?
Yeah.
I don't know. Hey, listen,
Pac Zero, come on now,
sorry.
Chris.
I mean, I'm tired. It could be good, but let's wait and see. This is one of these things.
It could be good.
This is one of these things where the Metacritic could go from anywhere from 80 to 20, depending on how it goes.
I'm more interested in playing it if it's a 20, to be honest.
It's more like it's blatantly based on that secret level show, the Pac-Man thing, and that it seems to be based on that. And I'm not really sure what came first. That's a chicken and egg one there. Did they make that animation and say, hey, we should make a game of that? Or did they say to secret level, here, we're making a batshit game. Do you want to make a cartoon based on that? A cartoon. Probably making it sound like the Smurfs.
Danger Mouse.
But I'm curious about it. I'm a big Pac-Man mark, so I'll play it. But they better not. It would be the very first time the ball's been dropped on a Pac-Man game, I'll tell you that. For a fact, but we'll see. I'm curious about it though.
Let's get some thoughts from our lovely patrons from the Discord. Matt H asks, how many cans of Monster / other energy drinks combined that got you through the show? I had 2.5 Monsters last night.
I just nursed one. I was finishing off a can of Coke when we started.
It was like a fucking 3.5 hour show. How did you manage to only get through one? That's mad to me.
I'm just economical with my Monsters.
With your consumption.
Yeah, I managed it.
Mr. Dave asks, biggest surprise versus biggest disappointment. Frame this in the way that we didn't know absolutely everything that was going to be at it.
Biggest surprise.
Had I not known nothing, it would have been a tie for me between Naughty Dog and Camia.
Biggest surprise for me was Intergalactic, because, like, even in terms of what we knew, because although we knew it was coming, and although I knew it was a Naughty Dog space game, I was surprised that I was well into it.
Yeah.
Because I was expecting to go, okay, that'll be good for the Naughty Dog fans, of which I don't count myself. No offense to them, it's just not my thing. But I was like, yeah, okay, I'm well into this. Biggest disappointment, I don't know. There wasn't. I didn't remember anything.
Not long enough. You wanted 3 more hours of fun.
Oh, I know, of course. The biggest disappointment was those pesky awards getting in the bloody way.
Yeah.
I don't know. There was nothing there that I saw that made me think, that's a bit bullshit. Like, I mean, it's maybe Turok's going to be third person, but I mean, again, that could still be good.
Not the Sonic trailer being 13 seconds long.
Exactly. The biggest disappointments could be stuff that for games that could still end up being good. Stuff like that. That trailer not being long enough, which doesn't mean the game's bad. It just means the way it was announced wasn't ideal. But I genuinely was like happy from start to finish in that show. Even like the nothing games that were, as I say it disrespectfully, but the games that weren't bombshells, that they have that lull in the middle, which gives the press time to kind of actually relax for a minute. Even those didn't offend me. It wasn't like absolute bullshit. It was just your typical stuff you would expect, like your Honkai and all that stuff. Honkai the New.
Yeah, Honkai the New version. Dusty Hat asks, thoughts on the balance between awards to advertisement this year compared to previous years? I didn't think the ad stuff was too invasive this year. Like there wasn't anyone in a stupid costume going, "Hello, buy this keyboard." It seemed to fly by quite quickly.
But is he going down the cynical view of all the trailers advertisements? In that case, the balance was heavily skewed in favor of the ads.
But
I mean, realistically, let's face it, nobody, if it was just awards, if it was the Oscars, nobody would watch it.
As you pointed out last night when that Witcher 4 trailer was on, there was like 1 million people watching the YouTube version of that.
There's 1 million people on the stream on YouTube, and that's not counting Twitch. So
a story's going to go up later today, almost undoubtedly, saying it was the most watched Game Awards ever, and you don't get that without having games. It's just because it's called the Game Awards, and because it frames itself as like the gaming Oscars, which it's not. It's like it's essentially the winter E3, like showcase wise. And
he's kind of backed himself in a corner because he can never drop the awards aspect of it. Even though I bet deep down, as me putting thoughts in Kelly's head here, and said he's never said this and he never will. I bet deep down is that see if he could just drop these awards.
But also the awards get people in town, and I bet you it's a case of like, well, you're going to be in town because you're nominated for Game of the Year. Have you got anything to show, like kind of thing? I don't want the show to be any longer, and he's not. I want the show to be half an hour shorter, to be honest. And he's not going to cut any games, so I think just be grateful for the amount of awards time that we have, because it's only going to get lesser and lesser.
And also, like, I used to love the Oscars back in the day. I was something of a cinephile, and that was the only file I was. But I was, I just got exhausted with Oscars, like, because the speeches were all the same shit every time, and it's always like, kids, go to bed. Daddy says now, go to bed. And then
I didn't prepare a speech for this. I can't believe it.
Parchment. Yeah. So I'm kind of. I understand that people find it disrespectful for Keeley to come on stage and fire 5 awards out his hole within 20 seconds, but at the same time,
impressive.
He did, and they went some distance, but they hit people in the back row. But part of me is also like, yeah, okay, because with the greatest will in the world, and I mean no disrespect whatsoever, but the winner of best content creator shouldn't be going up on stage and giving us a 10-minute acceptance speech. Just like acknowledge the game, make everyone go well done, and then move on.
I mean, Greg Miller won that in 2015, and we've all seen what happened to him, so let's not encourage these absolute reprobates. Jimmy H, what's one category you'd remove and one you would replace it with going forward? I don't think we need action and action adventure. I think genre categories are kind of a piss take. I don't know. Category
content creator.
Yeah, can we guess podcast of the year? Podcast of the year is us. End of list. I don't acknowledge a single other podcast in the world. I don't know. Remove one category and replace it with a little cartoon coming up being like, you can all go to the toilet now, nothing's going to happen, because you're sat there for 3 hours and your back teeth are absolutely swimming.
The problem is, like, again, it's not a massive problem. I just the jury has been asked to vote on such a wide range of things. Like we know about the best, what we think are the best games and the best action game, the best sports game of the year, etc. If you ask me who the best content creator is, I'm like, what are the parameters of that?
Yeah.
Because we're content creators. The game developers are content creators. Twitch streamers are content creators. Like, what are you counting TikTokers here? Are you counting Instagram people who just take photos of their retro collections? That's such a wide ranging thing that I don't think that could really count as a category, in my humble opinion.
VGC podcast episode of the year, definitely the PS5 Pro argument one. Das Viven Hazy says, honestly, no complaints about TGA winners, nothing controversial at all. Black Myth winning anything's controversial in my opinion, but alas. Can't wait for the new Naughty Dog game in 2030 when it comes out. Interested to see how they do sword combat, considering the gameplay aspect is usually the weakest part of their games. Will it just be Uncharted with swords against robots? Will it be too similar to Horizon? Undoubtedly, Horizon 3 will come out the same day, and it'll just never thought of ever again.
If it was Uncharted with swords, it would have been called Unsheathed.
There you go. I don't think it'll be Uncharted with swords. I think they will do their damnedest to be like, but first previews of this game when it comes out doesn't feel like a Naughty Dog game. Feels totally different from what you'd expect from a Naughty Dog game. But with that Naughty Dog cinematic flair, please don't clip this, because when I inevitably preview that game, I'm going to look like a right tit. Yeah, I think this will feel markedly different. At least I hope so. I want them to do something totally different. Just don't mention Crash Bandicoot anymore, because Christ alive, no one needs that.
I did like they mentioned that though, because that fit in with the whole retro aesthetic though.
Yeah. That's that. I said it to you, but I'll say it publicly in case it happens. They used the colourful PlayStation logo at the end. Use that in the game. If anyone can get away with it, or not even get away with it, just say that they're doing it, and what is Herman Hulse going to do? Yeah, it would be them.
Agreed.
And finally, Calder, how will the old head survive now that we know that Yu Suzuki hasn't been working on a new Shenmue? Good.
Yu Suzuki's allowed to dip his wick in numerous pots, but I don't know if that's a metaphor. I'm shattered, mate.
Dip the wicks in the pots.
The point is, I'm sure Yu Suzuki's got his eye on another Shenmue, while also he bloody better have finished that story. Never mind Cody Rhodes. I've been waiting for Yu Suzuki to finish the story since bloody 99 or 2000. Like, this is an old argument, but I'm livid that the boy finally was given the opportunity to do Shenmue 3, and decided to end it on a cliffhanger like an absolute dauber. I'm like, mate, just you've been given this opportunity. Draw a line, just literally wrap it up. Draw a line under it. Give us the ending we want. Don't go, to be continued. Wink, wink. No. Sorry.
Well,
and instead now he's making this pish, whatever it was. I need to actually watch the trailer.
Pause of something. Fury pause.
It could actually
pause game. What's it called?
I'm pretty sure Brutal Pause of Fury was a beat 'em up in the 16-bit days. So I hope it's not
right.
That.
Well, on that bombshell, speaking of giving people the ending they want, that's the end of this week's episode of VGC, the Video Game Podcast. Thank you very much for listening and supporting the show and VGC on patreon.com/Video Games Chronicle. For any other business, check out the website. The whole show is exhaustively covered there. We are exhaustively sitting right here for your entertainment. So if you're interested in throwing us a shekel or two, patreon.com/Video Games Chronicle, podcasts, videos, and a vlog from Andy Robinson. I've just received footage of it, of him eating what looks like an 8-foot baguette. So some creative editing coming of that in the video. Any questions, comments, and concerns, the podcast at videogameschronicle.com. Thank you for joining me, Chris Scullion. I am going to edit this podcast, and then I'm going to my bed. What about yourself?
I'm off to write a newsletter for the Patreon folks.
Any of it going to be in English, or is it just going to be?
it'll be in that language that appeared at the start of the Intergalactic trailer. That kind of
more on that to come.
Wink. But yeah.
Okay, let's get out of here. This little glass bottle still stayed pretty cold, which is nice. So we're taking snifters of that as I proceed. I'm going to see Wicked again tonight. So I really need
Blue Wicked, the adult version.
Very quickly, can I think of a horrible pun? Probably not one that would get the podcast taken down. Thank you to Grant Kirkhope for the podcast theme. Shout out to Kenny C.M. Young for wearing a kilt. We love you, Kenny. Till next time, say goodbye, Chris.
Goodbye, Chris.
And we'll see you next week.